Hello everybody. So I am Suhajon Idik. I'm an English language teacher at Keningau Vocational College, Sabah, Malaysia. So the title of my presentation is Equipping ESL Learners with Information and Media Literacy Skills in Examining Online Resources. We live in the era of information explosion, where there's too much information, information is everywhere. A scholar said that Googling is believing, and that seems true because people nowadays simply believe in anything that they find on the internet, or they Google for any information that can confirm their beliefs, no matter how questionable that information is or how bad or wrong their beliefs are. So that's bad, and that is something that we need to deal with. Now, in 2019, uh, there's a term that people created. It's called COVID-19 disinfodemic. Now, it it derived from the term disinformation, which refers to false and misleading information that is being spread around. But COVID-19 disinfodemic is specifically narrowed to the ongoing pandemic that started in late 2019, and it is still ongoing as I present my project. Um, and that's bad because lots of false and misleading information is circulating on the internet, and people are sharing this information. People are forwarding this information to each other, and that is a form of fear mongering because it creates public paranoia and panic. And in Malaysia, in the first half of the year, there were 266 reported cases related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and these cases were being investigated. And when the pandemic struck, more schools in the world, including Malaysia, were closed down. And we faced two issues. The first issue was that teachers needed to adapt to online teaching. And of course, students needed to adapt themselves to this abrupt situation that we never really expected to happen before. So that's hard because a lot of teachers, perhaps most teachers in Malaysia, were not really familiar with online learning. We did not have any ideas. How are we going to proceed with our lessons through virtual platforms? And the second issue was that people, well, we're talking about school students, were sharing misleading information related to the pandemic. And what made it worse was that the teachers were also doing the same. And teachers are regarded as community leaders, especially in Malaysia. They are trustworthy individuals. Everybody believes in teachers. Students believe in teachers. So when teachers did the same thing, they were spreading or resharing information of that came from unreliable sources. So this could be really, really bad. So we have these two issues. Teachers were not really aware of, were trying to adapt themselves to online teaching. They were looking for techniques on how to teach students, what kind of activities that they could do. And then we had this disinformation, and particularly COVID-19 disinfodemic, as some scholars refer to it as. So we combined these two, and I thought that I could come up with a technique that I'm going to present today, where where it can be adopted as a classroom activity for teachers to conduct with the students to learn on how to gather, analyze, and evaluate information. Now, there's a term called information and media literacy. It's a universal term. Um, it's our ability to recognize whether information is true or false, and also our skills in gathering information, in analyzing, evaluating, utilizing, and conveying information properly. According to ISTE, International Standard of Technology in Education, and students need to reach certain standards. And one of these standards is known as knowledge constructor, where students need to have research skills and evaluation skills. So when I did this project, I did it with my students at my own school. So as you can see in this picture, this is my school. We are located in the interior region of Sabah, an island state of Malaysia that is located on Borneo. or and the whole area is called as East Malaysia, because Malaysia is split into two parts, West Malaysia and East Malaysia. So as you can see, my school is located in the interior region. It's surrounded by hills. It's a nice place. Then I did this with a lot of my students in many classes of different cohorts. So in this presentation, I'm going to present the latest work of discoveries or findings that I had with the most recent class that I had done this activity with. And there were 30 students, 16 years old, that were involved as the subjects in this project that I'm going to present, that I'm presenting to you. So I call the technique AIE. So it's an acronym that stands for accumulate, investigate, evaluate. So the first stage is accumulate. So students are just trying to find out what they know. In this case, in the case of the task that I asked them to do, I asked them to specifically focus on COVID-19. So they were trying to recall what they knew about COVID-19. They jotted it down, and then they tried to find out more information about it. And the tool that I use in my class is known as KWL. In the second stage, the students designed their own questions, and these questions guided them in expanding their research related to the topic that they were trying to find out, in this case COVID-19. And I used the tool known as Q-Matrix in this level, in this stage. The third stage, it's called evaluate. So where the students look at the topic, in this case COVID-19, from different perspectives. Okay, so maybe what were the facts related to the pandemic, what was the public reaction to the pandemic, what was the surpluses that could have occurred as a result of this pandemic. So, and we use 6 thinking hats as a technique in this stage, and there were follow-up reflection questions once the students completed these 3 stages. So these were the tools that I used in my class. KWL chart. K stands for know, what I know. W stands for want, what I want to know, and L stands for learned, what I learned. Q-Matrix is a chart that helps students or even teachers to design questions from low-order thinking questions to high-order thinking questions. And the final tool is known as 6 thinking hat, and where these tools can be used to look at an issue from 6 different perspectives. These 6 different perspectives are represented by 6 hats of different colors. White hats refer to facts. Red hats refer to just emotions. What do people feel? Are they scared? Are they anxious? The yellow hats refers to the positive side of something, while the black hats, it refers to the critical side. You're being critical of certain issues. And the green hat refers to, well, ideas and creativity, alternatives, new ideas. And the blue one is pretty much the summary of the whole ideas. What kind of conclusion you can come up with, what recommendations can you come up with. And I like to use Solo Taxonomy. It stands for structure of observed learning outcomes in evaluating my students' response. So Solo Taxonomy has 5 levels. The first one is pre-structural. That means the person has no idea. The second stage is unistructural. That means the person has one idea, just one idea. The second stage is known as multistructural, where the students have different ideas, but they are not linked, they are not connected. And the fourth stage is called relational, where the students are able to link these different ideas. And the last stage, extended abstract, students come up with new concepts in a new context from different perspectives. So this is one of the samples of my students' work in using KWL. So KWL, what I know, what I want to know, and what I learned. So the students were jotting down what they knew about COVID-19, and they read an article, and then they jotted down what they learned from the article. So in this task, the students were supposed to search for more articles and online information related to the pandemic, and they tried to find more information about this pandemic, and they jotted it down what they learned. And this was the sample of my students' work where they actually use Q metrics to create questions related to the pandemic. In this task, I gave them photos of anti-lockdown protests. People were protesting of lockdown, of this pandemic lockdown. They didn't want to be locked down. No, let's not have lockdown. So I showed them some photos, and they were answering some questions, and they had to create questions related to these photos, and they had to answer those questions by perhaps searching for more information on the internet. So they were able to use it successfully. I've done some I've done these activities this activity with my students in the past for a few times, but in the past classes we focused on different topics, like election in the United States in 2016 and in 2017. But in my recent classes, I focus on COVID-19 pandemic because that is an issue that everybody is talking about and experiencing. So when they were doing this, in the end of the day, they learned few things. One of them was they were able to discover or they become aware of inconsistency in reporting. Now they realize that when you look at an issue, there's no one perspective or one argument supporting an issue. There were many arguments supporting the issues. There were many arguments opposing the issues. There were arguments that were questioning the issue. So they were able to discover different perspectives, different aspects of how people see things and argue about things. They also discover unfounded claims. Some public figures, they like to make statements without any proofs. So that's bad. And they were able to learn, to understand how important it was to search for information from different sources so that they were able to put together all these pieces of information from different sources and come up with a coherent concept or coherent report. So they learn about coherence too. So my students took part in a hackathon. My students and I, me as their supervisor, we took part in a hackathon organized by UNESCO. The theme was information and media literacy. So we made it as 24 finalists, and in the end, we were one of the 5 winners of this hackathon, and we won the innovation community category. So our proposal was to do a train for trainers project. While I've been talking about me conducting this activity in my class, but before we carry this out in our class, we first have to train the teachers, raise their awareness about how dangerous it is for them to simply share information from questionable, unreliable sources. So they have to have that awareness before they can actually, for them to actually understand how severe this issue is and understand information and media literacy, and finally, they learn to accept that concept and integrate these strategies. We are hoping to come up with many strategies on how to teach information and media literacy in the class. Incorporate these strategies into the classroom teaching. So in the future plan, I've told you before, we want to do train the trainer program. I'll form my own team of teachers and students. We would like to create downloadable materials for classroom teaching, so that the teachers can access these materials and use them in their class. Also lesson plans perhaps, and we might have online resources, links to articles, online news, web tools that people can use, teachers particularly, and students can use to fast check information, to verify certain pieces of information. And we would like to adapt this kind of our materials and strategies so that any teacher that teach any subject, any teacher of any subject can use this to teach any of the subjects that they're teaching or any topics. So that's very important. So that's all from me. I hope you understand what information and media literacy is, which is very, very important. Okay, so before we would like to reshare a particular post, let's think about the source of this post, whether it is reliable or not, whether it is questionable or not. Only when we are able to confirm its reliability, its credibility, that we might consider reshare it. But in the end of the day, it's up to us. Thank you so much.